Hello, I'm Brad with Shad this week. Shad, how are you doing?
Um, all right. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm doing good. Matt will not be joining us this week. He'll be back next week. Um,
Yeah.
so we're gonna be doing a bit of non-wrestling chat this week. So we're kind of just gonna go all over the place, talk about some nerdy things here and there. But I thought we'd start with what we've been playing lately because Shad has been opened a giant can of worms in his life recently.
One of many, one of many. Starting off with the what we're playing. I've gotten into Stellaris lately. I know it's been around for a while. I know there's a bunch of DLC. I don't have any of it. I'm just playing the base game. But it's it's basic. The way that it seems to me is it's Civ in space, as in it's real easy to lose a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, I have Well, I've got a multiplayer game I'm doing with some friends of mine, and in that one, my culture is psychic, but in my solo games, I have not managed to pull that off yet. Kind of experimenting around.
You said you kind of got stuck on the corner of the map in that one, didn't you?
hmm I'm stuck off in a little corner and couldn't expand much, so I was like, well, so I cranked up for all of my uh, research tech, so I could research faster, and here we are. Suddenly, I'm psychic and pulling buffs out of the shroud.
I always hated that. I think Civ 3 was notorious for that. You'd always get like boxed in by the other civilizations, even if you made the world like really big.
You can have that happen in Civ 4. Not as easy, just kind of draw.
Yeah.
In From what I can tell in Stellaris, it's another one of those luck of the draw things because you can't just jump from star to star. It's got pathways that you travel on, and not all the star systems. So if you get some choke points and another civilization beats you to them, then you're stuck there. Unless you want to try and go to war, but
I still think Civ 4 is the best Civ game.
it was the one I came in on, so it's the one that has a soft spot in my heart.
The first one I played was Civ on the Super Nintendo, and then I played Civ 2 on PlayStation, and then Civ 3 was my first like PC Civ.
I am 100% honest. I am completely and utterly flummoxed as to how you play a civilization on a console.
It wasn't bad. Like, I don't remember very much now, but I mean, I did it.
I'm not saying you can. I'm saying it's so foreign to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's been so long. Like, I don't even necessarily remember how you did it anymore. Well, I mean, you did Sim City on Super Nintendo, so it's not like it's much probably more complicated than that. And you also, I wonder, because there was a mouse for the Super Nintendo. I wonder if you could use the mouse with it.
That would be a change.
But I don't think so, because I think you could, because it came with Mario Paint, and then you could use it for what was the game you could use it for? There was some other game you could use it for that was like kind of an RTSE kind of game.
Uh,
It had Vikings, I think, but I don't think I could. I would
I
have
don't
to.
have any.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I would have to like really look because I have no idea what the name was. Um, I've been back to playing a bit of ESO and Warframe.
Those are a bit, well, I mean ESO especially, but they're too MMO-ish for my taste. It's There's just something about the structure of MMOs that, yeah, I'm not here for it. I don't like it, um, and so I don't want to do. The only MMO I played, there were two MMOs I played for a bit. One of them is with City of Heroes. Played City of Heroes so long. Even and I was an altaholic. I did not do hardly any in-game content. I kept doing alternates. Why? Because it was fun. And then I played DC Universe Online for a while, and that was fun, and it was cool, and it was different. Like, your combat was different because it wasn't button, button, button. Like your mouse inputs had different rhythms and cadences for you doing different attacks, and that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. But again, the MMO structure really wore me.
Warframe has less of that, and obviously Warframes is just Space Ninjas, and so like you can have a lot of fun just with the gameplay, but like there is like progression to that and like getting like farming and stuff, but there's also like I guess the gameplay is just pretty strong, so like you can go away and come back and like you really didn't miss anything.
That's glad to hear that.
And then you can
I,
just pick what you want to do. You progress on the map and stuff, but like they have like what's bullet jumping, which is kind of like how you go through levels quickly. You can like pretty much jump on a wall and stick to it and shoot people, and you have like a wide array of like weaponry. Because how you progress is like you fight with your frames and your weapons, and then it increases your mastery level, which gives you access to more stuff. But you like the weapons are really diverse. Like you typically have a melee weapon, like a sidearm, and then your main weapon,
yeah.
and that can kind of go all over the place. So like you could have just your standard like assault rifle. There's like a flamethrower, and then you can like mod stuff. So like you can put like certain mods on that flamethrower you got, and suddenly you're just shooting radiation at people. Or if you want to
Oh,
do like a more stealthy thing, you can have a bow, or you can have kunai knives instead of like a pistol. Or and then the melee weapons can be anything. Like you'd have like a bow, you could have a like a sword and a shield, just a straight up sword, like double knives, that sort of stuff.
that's I appreciate the the lengths they went through to give you that kind of customization choice.
And there's open world areas, but a lot of it's just like, oh, we're dropping you in this mission, and like okay, you have to kill this many creatures, or there's like, okay, you have to break into these areas without setting the alarms off, or you have to rescue hostages. It's kind of like that.
So it
um,
does a lot of instancing, I guess.
yeah, a lot of it's instanced. Then you have your standard, like you have your rep grinds and all that stuff, but a lot of times
Right.
it's like, okay, well, you got to this new boss, he has the blueprints to make a new frame, so um, okay, do you have the parts for that? Well, you got to go, farm. But it's fun. It's something fun to do in like for like a month and then move on to something else.
Okay. It's uh I tried it and I don't know, it didn't grab me.
You have to find that like it gets. I mean, other than the gameplay, it gets one. You have to get a couple of frames and
Hmm.
experience like different aspects of the gameplay.
Kind of like people that play Monster Hunter and you mess around with the different weapons, find which one fits you.
Yeah, that's kind of how Monster like because I didn't like Monster Hunter until I figured out what works well for me,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that changes from game to game. Um, Actually, the new one's coming out here. I think in a couple months, maybe next month.
It's not far off. I know them.
Yeah, have you tried a Monster Hunter before?
No. Eh, it's just not that really grabbed me and I was like, "No, I'm good."
It didn't for a couple of games, and then World really grabbed me, but like some of the monsters would do like really crazy stuff. Like I remember I was hunting one and it ran up to like a really big like dragon and like got it pissed off, and then
Oh,
caused all
aggro
sorts
the
of
dragon.
yeah, caused all sorts of mayhem.
Uh, that is a different mechanic. So,
Yeah, and they have all their little um quirks and stuff to them.
sure.
But Yeah, so like I said, usually when one of us is gone, we don't like to talk wrestling just because usually we just feel bad because we'd want the other person's input. So that's usually why we dodge it. But
Yeah, we typically don't. I mean, there's a nice juicy topic that dropped, but I don't want to do it without Matt here because he's going to add some stuff that I'm sure one of us would forget. So
yeah,
we'll just sit on that for later.
and there's been lots of juicy tidbits in the Magic the Gathering space and D&D space.
Oh God, the was it was it old school MTG was the guy that got raided by the Pinkerton?
Yeah.
Yeah, guy has not. I don't think he said anything else about it, and I can't really blame him. I mean, you're gonna have something like that happen. You either talk about it and you get another visit from them, or you keep quiet and keep your head down and try and avoid having stuff like that. And if that's his livelihood, then I guess that's what he's got to do.
Well, they did their like 2025 lineup, and they really are leaning heavily into like the gimmick stuff. Like it's all like I don't know what they call it, like Beyond. So like they have like
I don't.
Spider-Man, Final Fantasy,
Oh, they're doing all their crossover
and
stuff.
there's more of that than actual Magic sets this year.
See, I don't understand doing a Disney crossover. It's like, well, okay, we're out of ideas. So what are we gonna do? Is we're going crossover. Okay. What are you gonna do when you run out of people who are willing to do it? And then the other thing I don't understand, Disney has its own card game called Lorcana. I don't understand the. I guess Disney's wanting to double dip on. Well, yeah, we're selling our. By the way, Lorcana stuff is just strikes me as crazy expensive. Um,
Is it still going?
yes, so far as I know,
So I feel like that kind of dropped off the face of the earth, and all I hear about is Magic, Pokemon, the odd complaint about Yu-Gi-Oh, and like One Piece right now.
so I have seen Lorcana, new Lorcana stuff pop up on shelves. Like the one thing that made me pause for Lorcana was whenever I saw the Emperor's New Groove Kronk deck, and I went, "Oh, really?" Because Patrick Warburton cracks me up in about everything he does, and you know the ability to play the game and just sit there. Oh yeah, it's all together. Just do that as part of a game would be amazing. But it's also like $15 a deck, and I'm like, wait, what? And they sell them in like I did the math on it at one point, and now I can't that I did on it. But I was like, this seems really expensive. I guess what they're doing is they just sell you the pre-made decks. You can mix and match if you want to, and it's like
Oh,
you don't really want people to do that, do you?
Keyforge did that. Like that was they would like computer generated deck you could buy, and no two decks were the same. But it had the problem of you could get a deck that was just totally borked out of the box.
Broken or completely worthless.
Yeah,
So
but they they the new D&D stuff has been coming out, and that has not been going over particularly well.
well, okay. So my read on a lot of the 5.5 or D&D 2024, whatever term.
The D&D We Like Money edition.
There were some things in 5th edition that were not good. And a lot of them weren't good because Jeremy Crawford kept insisting. Like, it wasn't thought out well enough at the beginning for them to default to this is the language we wrote it in, so it has to be this way. Because, for example, if you were playing a paladin, wanted to smite, the text said you had to make a weapon attack. Guess what an unarmed attack is? Not a weapon attack. Therefore, Jeremy Crawford said, you can't smite with an unarmed attack. And everybody's like, that's stupid.
Well,
Why can't you smite with an unarmed attack?
Can we
And
just
he's
be
like, well, you just
honest?
can't.
Can we just be honest? Jeremy Crawford is an idiot. So
Well, he's he made a lot of those boneheaded calls, and
He's still doing
it,
it though. Now he's like, because now he's pretty much like hammering all the flavor out of the universe, and he had the great idea that it was more inclusive to get rid of multiracial people in
was
the
that
world.
him?
Yeah,
I didn't know whose
he
call
he
that
was,
was.
or he was a big one justifying it, but that.
Well, he's the public face of the design, so of course he's going to defend their decision.
But I don't.
Like that one, I'm not going to jump up and down on about.
I just that one's so That one was so blatantly stupid though. That's like where I don't know. It just I don't know. It's like we're gonna be more inclusive by getting rid of biracial people, and it's just like, oh my god, guys.
And
Like,
the other side to it was that there were entire community, like in the lore, there were entire communities that were just half elf community, half elf parents with half elf kids, half orc parents with half orc kids, like all that sort of stuff.
well, the other thing that pissed me off
Well,
is like the crusade against Drow, because they're like, well, there shouldn't be inherently evil races. It's like, no, Drow are not inherently evil. Menzo Berenzin was evil. Like the
yeah,
other ones were not necessarily evil.
it was just that Menzoberranzan was the biggest one, and it was under Lolth's thumb.
Yeah.
And so it's not racial, it's cultural. And there were drow that came from other cities that weren't that way. So it's a cultural bias. Shocking, we have cultural biases happening all around us. But in any event, it's like I like the idea of half elf characters. I like
Well, they make
they were
sense.
also really good in fifth edition. But
They
if
make
that's what it's
sense
going to be,
though.
well,
Say,
I mean, of course it makes sense. There's always going to be a human who sees an ethereal beauty and is like, you know. But
even with like a half orc though, like a half orc gives you like some really interesting fodder for like a character if you really think about it, like because you're probably like don't have like a typical upbringing, like you're gonna deal with a lot of biases against you and stuff. Like you can really have some interesting characters come from
yeah,
that.
I had a character whose mother was the survivor of an orc raid, and whenever he came of age, he went and joined the Church of Ilmater because it was it was hurting. His mother was basically living in continual PTSD about it. But I was like, okay, so he goes to the Church of Ilmater. Why does he go to the Church of Ilmater? Because that's what the Ilmatari do. They protect kids. And then what's he do? He doesn't. He says, I'm not going to be like where I came from. So he was a life cleric, and it was great. I love, it was fantastic. I loved that character. I had some really good play with that character. But if we're not going to have that, then we're not going to have it. And the other thing that I think is that gets missed sometimes is the fact that they have said outright that if it's not in D&D 2024, you can just pull forward from 5th edition and use that's I mean they did that with 3rd edition and 3.5. The epic level handbook was never updated for
Because
3.5.
that was a
So
broken piece of shit.
well, but it's epic level, of course it is. Um so what do? You just pull that forward. I mean, 3.5 was not balanced in any way. It had so many different choices for so many different things that it was really too easy to break. They had one in the oh, they had one that was in I think it was Complete Warrior, where if you made a jump attack that was long enough, you could like really scale your power attack in a big way. And so, what could you do with that? Well, all you got to do is find somebody who's got you dump a bunch of points into jump, take level barbarian with the substitution level. I can't remember which substitution level it was, but it lets you count, so you could do a full charge and then you could do a charge and have a full attack at the end. Do the jump as part of the charge, and then all of a sudden you're just hitting like a train. Cool. You couldn't really do anything else, but cool. Um, Fifth edition. Here, the dirty secret about the D&D editions, um, is fifth edition is evens the playing field more than 3.5 did, but you still have the linear warriors, quadratic wizards kind of thing. And the dirty secret is that if you wanted all your classes to be balanced, you wanted everybody to, if you wanted everybody to contribute in their own way that was unique and different, but it was an even playing field in terms of power, you need fourth edition.
The problem with
But
fourth
there was,
edition is it didn't feel like D&D.
uh, I didn't have the problem. I don't know if that's just, if I just look at the D&D rules as the framework that I'm working around or what, but
It was easy to teach, though. That's what I've always
easy.
defended for Eon, is it was very easy to teach a new player.
And it also had an encounter builder system in it that made it very easy for you to make encounters appropriate for your party. And so what do you have is you have this system that it's very easy to pick up and play because it's very easy for new players to be like, okay, I can use this anytime I want to. I can use this once a day, or I can use this once a short rest. Okay, I understand that. That's easy. Okay, cool. But then, you go back to Vancian spell slots, and you're like, when do I get what back? Well, it depends on the class. Well, it depends on. And so, look, I had a lot of fun with 4th edition. It did not hurt my feelings, and it had a class in it that I loved that was not shown up before or since in the Avenger. I just don't hate on it. I wish there was still like the character builder for it and all that sort of stuff out there, but once they
Pathfinder
move,
two's kind of doing it, but the Pathfinder 2 did some weird things. I was gonna say the one thing I really loved about fourth ed though is I love like when you had like boss encounters in the monster manual, and then they had like mooks that were like all one hit point things that people could just cut through. Like it really helped with like someone that maybe isn't as much of a damage dealer could like take those out while people focus on the boss. But
yeah.
I think the problem with fifth ed for me has always been they balanced it too much, because like I know there's been a lot of stuff like it was really hard to specialize in fifth ed, like because there'd be times where you'd be like sitting there needing to do a skill check and you're all just kind of staring at each other being like, well, okay, we all like no one's really great at this, so who's gonna potentially screw this up the least?
So that is something that I put on your GM largely, because if it's using a skill that nobody has access to,
Oh, I
then
meant
that
like if you
means,
did like the stuff that came from Wizards of the Coast, it was rampantly
oh,
terrible in that.
dude, pre-written stuff has always been a crap. Like that's never it's always been either insanely tough or just silly in a variety of ways.
But
The pre-written adventures are the only pre-written adventure that I ever enjoyed and tried to run was the Red Hand of Doom, and I got about halfway through it with a 3.5 group, and right about the time we got to that point, we had to take a break for a little bit, and then fourth edition came out, and that just kind of screwed the pooch on the whole thing. But most pre-written adventures that I've been a part of have not been.
I've been in some okay ones. The problem like I ran into with some of the fifth ed stuff though was like you would have some skill check for that level, and it's like that's a really tough skill check for that level, and they would expect you to like have an honest shot at it. And it'd be something like if you just had like a standard like fighter, rogue, cleric, wizard, like you'd be really struggling to find someone with that.
Um, so fifth edition has, I think people forget that in skill checks, fifth edition has some stuff to help with that. So if you take the help action, someone who's doing a skill check, then you get advantage on it. And the advantage disadvantage system, I like more than just trying to figure out how much you swing the penalties bonus.
I like
Like,
it's. I think advantage disadvantage is a genius
yeah.
mechanical addition.
And another mechanical addition I love that they dropped, fourth edition, was skill challenge, where you had to hit X number of skill successes before you had Y number of failures. I loved that. Like that way you could have a whole encounter that wasn't combat. It was, excuse me, it was being creative with your skill usage. It was you leaning on the skills that you had. It let different people shine at different times. I loved it. I kept using it. I have not run much fifth edition. I've played far more than I've run, but it's just a fantastic mechanic.
I do
Something I keep in my back pocket.
I do think fifth went to video game better than some of the other editions have,
Mm.
because Baldur's Gate 3 really uses the system really well.
They even had to make some modifications for Baldur's Gate 3. Like Baldur's Gate 3 caps out at I think level 12 because they said, look, once you get beyond that, we can't balance the game at that point.
Yeah.
And there's some other stuff that they changed for balance purposes. The thing that I believe throws people who came in from other editions about fifth edition is bounded act. The idea that you, with your proficiency bonus, you're only expected to have a bonus to any given thing up to a certain point. And you have to do something pretty well outside that to break it. So at a certain level, you can reasonably assume that a certain AC is going to be an even fight or a tough fight or something like that. And if your players are going to be clever and get advantage or stuff like that, then they're playing properly. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But I keep seeing homebrew people like, well, what if I put an extra plus on it? It's like, well, you don't want to do that because that's not how 5th edition is structured.
Yeah, when people I think like the I've never really home ruled a lot. The only thing I've ever done for people is I don't make them roll for hit points. I'm just like, you just get your max hit die every level. Just because I've seen that go horribly wrong for people, and number go up is what most people want to see anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I've always done the only thing I've ever done is I think I called them heroic dice. I think every session you get 2 hero points that you can expend to re-roll something. That's like the only thing I've ever
so
done.
they have 5th edition has that in inspiration. The thing that people forget is that they're supposed to recommend to the GM that someone should get inspiration for doing something. And you can get re-rolls with it, or give yourself advantage. Give yourself basically. Which, okay, cool. And then I think I know 3.5 had luck feat that did stuff like that for you. But I do like that they added cantrips in general because it felt bad to be like, I'm this powerful wizard, and it's like, but I can't manage to do like a low level offensive spell. It's like, no, now you have to get out that crossbow that you can barely hold because you're not strong enough for it. It's like, so I like cantrips.
Someone really creative can cause a lot of mayhem with cantrips.
Oh yeah, but that's good. That's a good thing. If you're going to be clever and creative with your stuff, that should be rewarded. Well, in my opinion.
I've seen some
You know,
people do. Actually, it's one I like having in my arsenal because I saw someone else do it once, like using grease. I've seen some really devious stuff with grease. Actually, I think I got the hero point concept from Mutants and Masterminds. I think that's what I stole it from.
oh yeah. Hang on just a second. I'll be right back.
I think he's
I
going to
know
get
Mr.
his Mutants and Mastermind stuff.
Give me just a
I played that back in the day. I think around second edition. Most of my stuff's PDFs though. I don't have the books anymore. It's an interesting game. I think they're on third right now. Are they on third right now?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are they on third edition right now?
Yes, they are. I like second edition myself.
That's what I played
Um,
the most of.
so second edition took first edition and then cleaned some stuff up. Third edition, I have a copy of that too. Um, came out with the. I'm gonna prop this up back here because I think it'd be a cool backdrop. Came out with. It was in the DC Adventure Heroes book where they did that, and what they did. It's still D20, but there's enough changes that it makes my brain tie in knots. That, like for example, if you have in typical D20, if you've got a 16 in a score, your modifier is +3. In third edition Mutants and Masterminds, that means that your score for that is a 3 instead of the 16. I'm like, I know why you did that, but the thing that I really like about Mutants and Mastermind is you do not only have to do superhero stuff with it. You can do all kinds of stuff with it.
Well,
And
they
it's
have.
not
You can get like it's called True 20, and you can get stuff without like the superhero stuff tacked on.
so one of the yeah, you only need a D20 for this. Your if your AC gets hit, you have a toughness save. And how much you pass or fail the toughness save by is how much you get hurt.
And
The
you can there can be one shots in this system because
yeah, there can be.
I've had bad guys get one shot before
hmm
in a fight.
One of the one of the things that I like about it is, for example, if you want to have if you want to break it all the way down, you want to give somebody a gun. It's like, can you have points for that? Absolutely. You can absolutely have points for that. You take the strike feat, you give it the ranged extra, so now that you can hit them from afar, you give it device easy to lose, so that negates the extra from the range, and then you can do things like give it special ammunition, but it's limited or something like that. So it's like, hey, guess what? Your stat sheet says you have a gun. You know what? It just counts towards your character point.
Well, you can do more. You can get way like so. The first character I ever ran in that, I mean, it was essentially Gigantor, but like it was a teenage boy that had a robot that he controlled with a watch. So the robot had all the stats, and
Mm-hmm.
then the boy was just standard. Someone else in my group also
Sidekick
did it.
feat.
And someone else in my group did it where he had a magical sword,
Mm-hmm.
and so his character of itself had no points in it. He was just a standard human being. Like the sword had all the
Yeah, it's a container power. It's
yeah.
Billy Batson says Shazam and transforms. It's a container, and yours was the sidekick feat, and yeah, sidekick right there, bam. So you have the character, but you're dumping all the points into the sidekick, and
Yeah.
it's you can do that for about anything because so a friend of mine decided to try and take this to what limit he could, and there's a sci-fi series. It's called River World, where everybody who's ever lived lives somewhere along this river. And anytime you die, you just show up somewhere else along the river. And so what he had done is he went through, and I mean, he worked the system to the absolute max, and it was all literary characters. So that means that he had stats built for Conan, Indiana Jones, D'Artagnan, Sam and Dean Winchester, the Pulp, the Shadow, Sarah Connor. All of these characters were made out using that sort of Zorro. All that sort of stuff was in there. And so what happens is we take those and go to, let's say we go into town, we're going to find out what's going on, and the local warlords henchmen are, off the top of my head, I'm trying to it was Dracula, and his henchmen were Frankenstein's monster, and the Kevin from Sin City.
Okay.
And you know what? You can make it work. You just set the power level. I played in one Mutants and Masterminds game where the DM didn't know what the hell he was doing. He's like, well, no, I said everybody, all the villains' power level, 4 levels above the heroes. And I'm like, that's 4 levels above the heroes for every 4 heroes. It's not a one-on-one thing. He goes, it'll be fine. I'm like, it will not be fine. And I was right. And he's like, well, I don't understand where you're having problems. It's like, maybe listen to what I told you. That's going to be a problem. You cannot have a level 10 hero bust a level 14 villain reliably. A level 14 villain is supposed to take on a team of 4 level 10 heroes for an even fight. But, that's going to happen with any system, is someone who doesn't read the book.
I remember. What did he do? Someone in my group. So one of the guys that played in my campaign was literally, he has a degree in astrophysics, and he did something absolutely ridiculous with the gravity powers in that game. I don't remember what he did, but like, it was very detailed and meticulous. It was detailed and meticulous to the point, like, I think you would literally have to have his degree to know what to do, like, with that character the way he did it. But yeah, so that, what's the really old one that you have to like know like calculus to do? Champions?
Probably.
Yeah, I think it's Champions.
And there ain't no way I'm ever picking that up. I only got to pre-cal when I was in high school.
That
I don't remember squat.
That one, the character sheets on that one look crazy.
Yeah.
If you want a good supplement though, it's from Savage Worlds, but Necessary Evil is an interesting setting to play around with. If you're ever doing like a soups campaign, because the general idea of it is pretty much space aliens come, all the heroes die, and all that's left are the villains trying to like keep the world together. Yeah. So it's an interesting little. It would be.
Yeah, I mean that's a fun campaign, and that's the thing. You could sit and play any setting, any style of game that you wanted to with the Mutants Mastermind system. There are people who keep trying. Well, can you play Wild West with 5th edition? It's like, it's not meant for it. But look, don't go through all that. This right here will do it. Way easier.
I always think people are weird that want to do that. It's like, well, no, because certain systems do certain genres better. Like you want a sci-fi game to like feel different than like a fantasy game, and they
want to use the system they know.
I know, but to me it doesn't work as well. Like D&D works really well for fantasy. I don't even know what I would do for sci-fi, but like.
Traveler.
Yeah, Traveler's pretty good. I like the D6 system with Star Wars was pretty good.
Draw complete, not blank. What did I do that with? Oh, I've never played a Traveler game. What was the sci-fi one? It's not Numenera. Numenera's kind of all off on its own.
Yeah. That's supposed to be like a Planescape Torment.
Oh, I remember what I did. There was on Drive-Thru RPG, I found a little D100 called the Kame system, and I used it to run a Star Trek game. And it's a D100 system. It's really bare bones rules. It's like, okay, this works this way, this works, and then you just go with it.
I think
I like that a lot.
I think people really have a fond memories of the Fossa Star Trek system.
Played that one.
I don't think I've seen it, and I've like read about it. I don't think I've ever read the rules.
So, one of my other favorite tabletop systems that I have not gotten to play a lot of, I've gotten to play some, have a blast, is Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is a narrative-based system. So instead of it being... The idea is that you are probably playing a criminal gang. And when you do this, you have your gang has a certain character. Is your gang, are they efficient? Are they brutal? Or are they quiet? Um, and everybody makes different members of the gang and that sort of stuff. You try to work your scores. What you do for each job or whatever in the session, though, is it's like Ocean's 11. On the way in, whenever you hit something that would trip you up, you can spend resources to go, oh no, I prepared for that. Like we get to the keypad and it's like, oh, what were we going to do about the keypad to get in? Well, as it turns out, the hacker had prepared a little Bluetooth dongle to attach to it, and he's got 9 stress. It took 2 stress for him to get that prepared. He attaches it to it, that pops the keypad, and on you go. And the thing that I really loved is that it made a better Shadowrun system than Shadowrun.
Well, Shadowrun's never had a good system.
I played a lot of, I think it was 4th edition Shadowrun. I think I still have the book. But
I think third was close. Like third just needed some tweaking, and then
third also needed an index that had the right page numbers on.
Well, yes, that too. But they just never. There's always. It's so frustrating. They always get something blaringly wrong, and I think there's the problem. The problem Shadowrun is always going to have, and they fixed it for a while, and then the community bitched so it's back. Is the Decker is a problem because
it is a very cool idea to have, the VR Matrix internet. They deck in, so they're basically just plugged right into it, and they're doing stuff in the internet while you're doing stuff in the real. That's cool, but it completely slams the brakes on gameplay because now you have
2 parties,
2 separate things going.
Yeah,
and it's
really even worse because you usually have a Decker, so then you have one person doing so it's not even like a Scooby-Doo thing where you can like split it, but like the Decker is doing their own thing. And then you can't really manage it because either they're doing something and everyone else is bored, or they're doing combat or something in the real world and then they're just sitting there with nothing to do. So I just don't, I like the idea of it, but I think it's a terrible, like, I think if I ever ran a Shadowrun thing, I'd just be like, no Deckers. We're not doing that.
My favorite ways I've seen it handled, number one, is through the Blades in the Dark system. So you're basically doing it the same thing. You hit a challenge, okay, who's got something for this? And if the Decker's like, I'm handling it from the Matrix side, you do that thing. You move to the next thing. Okay, what's going on here? Oh, the strong guy has it. You go to that. The other thing that I really liked how it was handled is I played in a group, and the GM didn't say it out loud, but basically said to everybody, I played that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And so the quote-unquote Decker didn't go on the runs with us. The Decker was off-site. He was a member of the crew who was off-site, and it was just the GM handling stuff on that side. So you didn't have a split-out person. I liked that because I've never been interested in doing all of the decking stuff and things like that. I thought it was, yes, you're basically hacking out a big chunk of the book to do it, but I liked handling it that way.
Yeah, and I think the problem is like the Decker is a cool idea, and like the aesthetic is really cool to a Decker. It just does not work when you get into like gameplay.
Not. Oh, we had a question pop in chat.
As a question. Oh, go ahead, Shad.
Yeah, from Vectron. What would you recommend to introduce friends who can't handle extensive, crunchy rules to tabletop RPG? All right. So one of the things that I like, if you want to have easy access, we already said D&D 4th edition is probably the easiest D&D access. I like stripped down D100 because then you know, everybody can think in terms of percentages very. It's like how good am I at this? Well, you got a 50-50 shot. Well, what do you mean? You roll your dice. If your dice come up under 50, you succeed. If they come up over 50, you fail. Okay, well, what if I do this? Now, if you roll under 60, you succeed. And if you roll over 60, you fail. And so then that way, it's very easy to slide that scale back and forth. And you don't have to make it it doesn't have to be a huge production. If you find a stripped down D100 you like I said, the one that I liked that I found on Drive Through RPG was called the Comay system, COMAE. It was like $5. Why was it that little? Because it was stripped down. It was supposed to. That's the one I like.
I think Savage Worlds is pretty good. You could also try. There's some board games that have like very tabletop RPG ish ideas.
Uh, I just had the dumbest realization in the world. You want something simple? I bought this to do with my kids. This is Hero Kids. Okay? Here's how you play Hero Kids. Every character, and it's got rules for how you make it, but your characters have their stats, right? So what happens is you have your attack, and you get ever how many dice. The defense of whoever you're attacking gets ever how many dice. If the attacker's highest meets or beats the defender's highest, the attack works. And so what happens then, and you can flavor it all how you want to. There's examples in the book to flavor it however you want to. But how easy is it? Okay, you want to you want to swing your sword. You roll 2 6-sided dice. What's the highest number you got on one or the other? Do I add them together? Nope, don't add them together. Which one's higher? I got a 5. All right, let me roll the defensive over here for this one. Oh, I got a 4. Guess what? You hit. Because your attack met or beat my defense roll. And you can swing it back and forth. You know, one of the things they do is if your attacks are ranged, then you get 4 dice to distribute. So obviously you want to have 1 in defense no matter what. If you want to have ranged, the first dice actually costs you 2. So you don't ever have anybody who's ranged with more than 2 dice to throw on it. But, for example, you know, here's your brute. He has 1 defense, but he gets 3 dice to attack. Or flip it the other way. Here's your knight. He only has 1 die to attack, but he has 3 die for defense. And you know what you get to do? Have a super simple. The character sheets are only a half page. And you can, whenever I play this with my boys, my youngest just likes playing a ranger. He just wants to twang. He just wants to put the arrow into. My oldest likes playing a maid. He comes up with the most creative ways to do his magical attacks. Like, I'm going to make a whip out of fire and wrap it around them. Or the one that he got so creative it became, I'm going to make a swarm of little ice birds to swirl around him and attack. It doesn't matter. It all works. It's great.
So I have one that's more of a board game, and it's a big money pit. But so this does have like RPG elements to it. So this is Shadows of Brimstone. So the basic idea, if they're running a character, is they pick a character. There's different genres, but the main one is kind of Old West meets Lovecraftian horror, and they pick a character. So like you could be like a U.S. Marshal and you get a shotgun, and then you go into a dungeon. What you do is once you get to like you put like a tile down, and then when you get to the end of that tile, you draw a card and see the next piece of the dungeon you put down, and then monsters attack them. But essentially for that one, you do level up between missions if you want to do a campaign, but it's pretty much like, okay, your character has this many dice they can roll for successes. And it's all laid out like on their character sheet. It's very stylish. Some of the characters are really fun. Like you can be like oh, what is she called? Like you can be like the like a like like a female dancer, like with a small gun, and like you're super agile. You can be like I'm trying to think of some of the other characters. Like you can be like a gambler, a doctor. Oh, you can also be a gold uh,
Prospector.
prospector, and like get more money between. And then you can go to town, and then they like. The one thing I do like about it though is so it does have like a bit of the does have a bit of like Arkham Horror where sometimes the monsters are so terrible like you lose sanity points,
Yeah.
and the healing item for sanity is booze. But it's fun, and like so then it's also like a loot game. So then when you're going through the dungeon, you draw cards, you get new equipment. It's a lot of fun. But Shad's is interesting. That'd be really great for kids.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. I have not yet gotten a chance to. And here's the other thing: is especially if you're a more experienced GM, you can give because they also get little additional stuff, right? So, like the pre-gen warrior here, 2 dice to attack, 2 dice to defense, right? But they've got these little perks off to the side. It's like, oh, melee attack, then special action, whirlwind attack. Split your dice to make attacks against different targets. Just to add that in. Um, then it's bonus ability teamwork. If a target is engaged, your attacks get an extra die, and you can just sprinkle little bonuses like that in for different people.
I think it's
And
just straight whiskey Vectron.
straight whiskey for it.
Well, so and then there's like missions you go on, so there's quests. But the other cool thing is, then once you get past the basic game, it introduces portals. So you might go through a portal and suddenly be on like a spaceship with zombie astronauts, or you might be um, in. I'm looking at one of the sets here. You might be in like a post-apocalyptic world, and then you can buy like new sets and stuff. Like I have one here that's like a giant like frost monster. Cthulhu does have a box that you can buy. He's a boss.
Yeah, that'll do it.
The one I really like is like they're like zombie. No, are they zombies? No, they're like Union soldiers that are like zombies or like skeletons. I think they're zombies.
See, you say that, and what's happening is I'm immediately translating everything into Weird West.
No, it's
So,
kind of like that.
yeah, but you say that, and I'm like, oh, that's the Black Regiment. Um, you know, it's not. There's not anything wrong with it. It's just in my head, I'm switching things.
Or there's a monster set that's like pterodactyls wielding laser pistols.
All right, yeah, you can get a little. It's sounding like you're getting kind of rifts up in here.
It's more yeah, it's kind of it's not as slapped together as you think because you have to go through. What's nice though is like when you do monsters, you draw them. So then when you put new monsters in, you just put them in the deck.
Okay. Okay. Oh, it's
And anything like that, it's very modular. Like you can have what. And the other thing that's really cool about it is the base games come with CDs of music for mood.
that's nice.
So like you have like
Oh,
this like Western. The first CD has like this Western stuff, and then it gets more kind of like creepy and cave-like as you go.
so another recommendation, since the question is people who have not gotten into RPG, this one is intentionally for horror game. It is called Dread, and the mechanic of the game is, see, your character sheet is basically just what your character background, right? Like that's what it's for. What have you got with you? What do you know how to do? What's your character's attitude? Because the mechanic is that every time you do a stressful action, you have to take one or more pulls out of a Jenga tower.
Oh, that's
If you're the one that
interesting.
knocks the tower over, your character died. And every time that a character in the group dies, you rebuild the tower, and then you pull 3 pieces out for each character that's gone. So it gets real tense. And it's the very first one I played. We got attacked by a werewolf, and it came around to me in the initiative pass, because it still uses that for keeping the order of what everybody's doing. And I looked at the tower, and I'm tapping the pieces and everything, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, because we're on a boat in a river, and this werewolf is climbed up, after us to attack us. And my character goes, I looked at it, and I was like, I can't pull it, and I just stood there, saluted, said my character runs, he grabs the thing around the neck and dives over the side and pushed the tower over. And you know what? It's just like, because you can elect to do that, and I was like, there is nothing else I can do right now. This is going to be my heroic sacrifice.
That's funny.
It was the only choice at the time.
I'm trying to think of other ones because there's always like weird little ones at like half price that I always wonder about. Problem is like Crunchy is like what a lot of them go for now to justify a bigger price tag.
Yeah.
You can't charge like $70 for like a hardcover
No
book otherwise.
Well, like this book right here that I got from Hero Forge. This was like to get a PDF of the rules and then to get them to print me a soft cover. I think was 25 grand total.
That sounds
and
about right.
That's perfect, because what happens? Okay, I've got a digital copy. I get that already, and in a couple of weeks, I get a custom printed copy, and it's then that way it's like, hey, well, I have the book, I have a digital copy, makes life super easy. And I like the part of the reason that I like Mutants so much is the fact that I don't have to learn a new system to do everything.
Yeah.
I can just say, one of my friends ran a Dune game. We built our characters out of this. Like, he built us our characters out of this. And so I'm playing a Swordmaster of the House. Guess what? Built straight out of this. And then that way, guess what? We didn't have to learn a new rule set, and it was not an issue because you build the powers. Like, my character had, knife fighting abilities that was built in. He had to use the knife for it. So there you go. That's power on the thing, knife fighting right there. Guess what? You don't have to do, you don't have, the reason I like Mutants and the reason I like second editions, I'm more familiar with it, you don't have to do all that stuff. And it makes it a lot easier. Or Komei system makes it easier for me to do D100 stuff. I just like it that way.
I just
It is versatile.
For me, in general, for me now though, I don't think I have it in me to learn another rule set in my life.
I really need to want to. Like, Blades in the Dark is a very different rule set, but it's so much fun I didn't mind. I was just like, hell yeah, let's do it.
It wasn't a thick book though. I had it for a while.
Yeah. I don't have a physical copy of it, but it's.
I got
it's
one
not...
off Amazon for like $20, I think, at the time.
And I think there's a version of it that does not have the setting info in it. So it's, the thing that I really like about Blades in the Dark is how much of it is meant to be thinking on your feet, improv. You're, as the GM, you've got to be able to think on your feet and improv. As the players, you've got to be able to think on your feet and improv. One of the things we did early on was we were playing it in your base Blades in the Dark system. We are on rowboats trying to get away from the people chasing us, right? but except there's a minor spell to get him to move, and I'm like, oh, I'm playing the big guy. Big shocker, I know. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to take the anchor out of the boat. I'm going to swing it around my head, and I'm going to chuck it with the idea that when it lands, it's going to cause a hole in their boat. And at the beginning, one of the people goes, "Is there an anchor in the boat?" And my friend looked at me, or my friend running it goes, "There is now." Why? Because it made sense for it to be there, and he used it to do this thing. What else could I have done? Grabbed a flagpole as we went by and tried to use it to huck it to put a hole in the side of the boat. I love that. Right? I love that challenge of being able to think on my feet and figure out ways to do stuff. So,
I also think it's not a tabletop RPG, but board games have a lot of like legacy games now, which I
mm-hmm.
think is an interesting idea to substitute for a tabletop RPG. So if you don't know what like a legacy board game is, Gloomhaven's one, but there's various other ones. So it's essentially you play, and based on the result of the game, the the state of the game can change for you. Like you might get new characters, the board might change, new rules might get implemented, and they're meant to be played for I don't know however many sessions. It can vary. Like I think Pandemic's meant to be played like 12ish times. But those
Something
are
like that.
yeah, those are an interesting one, and those typically start fairly simplish. And the other thing nice about board games like that though is if someone maybe has more limited time, like you can always find a YouTube video with the rules. Like
Yeah.
Gloomhaven itself has the rules as a YouTube video that they give you.
I mean, if he doesn't irritate you too much, I know for some people he does, but there's been enough board games that Will Wheaton's run through on his channel that you get an idea of how to play it quickly. Um, so the board games are great. They're fun. I enjoy that. I don't know. For some reason, just being a dice chucker instead of a board stomper is more fun. I can't tell you. I have a copy of Book It, the wrestling promoter game, but it's been pushing water uphill to find people to play that one with me.
Book It's a weird one because I feel like I like some of the ideas it does, but like it doesn't quite do what I want like tabletop wrestling to do for me.
Look, there's not. I have not found anything that does tabletop. Okay, that's not true. There is one game I know of. I don't have it. There's one game I know of that's a tabletop wrestling game, and the idea behind it is that you are not playing what you see on TV. You are playing the person who is portraying what you see on TV. So, like, let's say that you guys are going to go out there and have this match, and this one guy politics with the booker so that he's going over.
Mm.
Well, there's going to be a consequence for that. Someone else is going to find out. Oh, I found out. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I potatoed the hell out of you on that spot. Whoops, my bad. There's going to be a consequence for that, too. And all that. And that's how it was told to me. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I really liked the idea. I need to run that one down. I have a copy of. It was a gift. It is SmackDown, the WWE D20
I think I had that at
RPG
one
book.
point in my life.
It is just. It does not work.
There's a couple of decent ones on Drive Through RPG that I've looked at over the years. I think you're better off if you want to do wrestling. You're better off with going with like Legends of Wrestling or something and just playing like the card game version or getting like Face to the Mat. Like those just do the system better, and you can do all the side stuff around it, and then you have an easy way to like resolve your matches.
Yeah.
I think, and I honestly think like I don't know. I think if you want to do tabletop wrestling, I think that's a better solo experience than involving other people necessarily.
It can be. Look, I'll be honest with you. The Fire Pro thing I've been doing has been a lot of fun, but I also don't cook the results. Just what happens happens. And
Yeah.
then guess what I got to do around that? I got to plan around that and play around it. What happens there? And this guy had a proving grounds match with a champ. What do I need to? And he wins. What do I do? Well, we're gonna have that match and see what happens. We might accidentally have a new champion.
Well, that's why I think like Legends of Wrestling, like Champions of the Galaxy and Face to the Mat work well because you don't have control over the results. Like the cards are weighted in such a way, but you're still at the mercy of like what happens. And I think that's breeds more creativity and more interest like when you're booking it long term because hey, you might be all excited that you have like someone that you really enjoy, like say Barry Windham in your promotion, and then you have to figure out what happens when he loses 5 matches in a row that
Yeah,
you didn't think he would.
it's like, and you have to decide. No, I'm not going to use Luthez anymore. Right?
Yeah. Or I even
You're welcome, Vectron. You're very very welcome.
yeah, and I think I don't know. It's hard to find time for everything, truthfully. The older I get, the
Yeah,
harder it is to have time.
it it does. You got to pick what you're going to be doing for a while.
And I think the problem, especially in tabletop RPGs, is it got better for a while, but we're almost back to that '80s glut where every idiot's trying to cash in on a RPG system of some sort, and it's gotten like incredibly watered down.
Everyone's trying to write their own system and then put their own gimmick on top.
It,
Uh,
I think the people that do that smarter are the ones that are like, okay, this is my system, but I did it to be compatible with Savage Worlds, and it's more of
there
just a
are,
supplement.
yeah, or people who are smart enough to just, I am going to try and write a supplement that goes with a pre-existing system but doesn't overshadow it. Um, Vectron saying every time you beat the true boss for adulting scheduling, it levels up. Look, I think we get people who are going to get in the nursing home. We're going to have people playing D&D in the common room, and I think that's going to be fantastic. No, these dice are killing me.
Yeah, that's gonna be funny. And they're just all gonna be on their tablets. I know, like times I play now, most people don't even like have books anymore because we have them all on like laptops and stuff now.
Well, you can have your digital sheets on there. Like I used to have a Nexus 7 tablet that I really liked, fit my hand well, worked. I mean, it's aged out now basically. But having an 8-inch tablet that has your character sheet on it and has you can just flip to the rules and that sort of stuff is
And
really
searchable rules for like terminology too.
yeah. That's going to be one thing that I will give Wizards of the Coast credit on. Well, no, I won't give them credit on it because they bought it with the intent of killing it. The people that made D&D Beyond did a great job as a web-based utility because you're like, oh, okay, I have these spells, and then you're like, what's the range on this? You just click on the spell and it slides the description out. The spell description's right there, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm using that now. Perfect.
I still can't believe they bought that with the intention of killing it because they're idiots.
Yeah, I mean, it. Um,
You know what's so dumb about that is I remember when 3.0 came out, they had a CD when they were doing previews with a character builder on it, and we're talking that's like 2000 2001, and it
yeah,
is 2025 now, and they're still being drugged kicking and screaming to doing like a better digital experience, and like you had a CD with a character builder 25 years ago now. Like why
yeah.
is this taking so long?
Well, fourth edition had a really good character builder, but the whole thing, oh gosh, that went, um, that well, the guy that was developing it went crazy, shot his girlfriend and killed himself, so that never happened. But the character builder was fantastic. Just da 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 da, all this, done the math for you. There you go, and it's great. D&D Beyond does the same thing, and it's great. Because the biggest issue with 3.5 was just, oh, stacking on all of the bonuses. Then you're trying to keep track of all of the bonuses.
Yeah.
And there's so many bonuses. And it just drove me crazy.
I always hated though, because people there's this weird thing where people online complain about like things about D&D that are like that's not really that much of an issue. Like attacks of opportunity, people would always complain about those. And like attacks of opportunity are not difficult.
The thing that makes attacks of opportunity difficult is when the rules change uh, between uh, editions.
Yeah, but I meant like in 3.5, people always bitch about attacks of opportunity. It's like no, if you cross over a plane that an enemy is at, like it's gonna attack you. Like that's all it
If you
is.
move through a threatened square, they get a free attack on you. Well, what's a
Yeah,
threatened square? Are you next to him? No. Does they have a long weapon? Yes. Okay, then the threatened area is bigger. Are they a great big person? Yeah, threatened area is bigger. That's it.
yeah. Just let your GM take care of it. And are people that complain about like GMing, like character imbalances in like D&D? It's not that hard. Like if that character's broken, just chuck a couple extra AC on anything that's fighting with them and slow them down. Like it's not that difficult. Like just be creative for once in your life.
The thing that I always said, it did not matter what you made because I could find a way to make. I ran a 3-5 game where the guy did the leap attack fighter. And that meant that whenever he did that with power attack and leap attack and he could get like a times 9 modifier on an attack, right? Okay, not a problem. You know what happens? They have to be vulnerable for critical hits to work. You know what to do then? Constructs, undead, whatever. Guess what? Now it's not a problem anymore. Fine. You know, just be aware of what you're dealing with and have a way to deal with it if it gets too far. Or here's the other thing. Make it so that they can't jump. Make the ground thick, gooey mud they can't jump out of. Or something like that. There are ways around it. Just
Yeah,
oh
I
well.
never got it. I think people overcomplicate GMing sometimes. Like it's like you have to do a lot of prep, but like I know for me it's just like a lot of times like if it was just cool or appropriate, like the monster just died. Like hit points were more of like a guideline
Rule
for
of
me.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
rule of cool.
And I don't like that. I don't get those like and you still see it online. There's people that have like an adversarial like relationship with the players. Like you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you're trying to collectively tell the story. This is not a this is not you're beating the GM or you're beating the player. What it is. It's a collective storytelling experience. Stories are no fun if there's no challenge. So, have a challenge, but don't make it impossible. Um, but getting this idea is like, oh, they're never gonna beat my creation. It's like, dude, you thought that was so great, and then someone casts Shatter, and it all falls apart.
Yeah, I've had some monsters get just totally like wrecked.
One of the first big campaigns I played in, and we were not supposed to be able to get the thing. It was in it. It was this. So it was this fiend. The fiends had taken over this tower. We're trying to get up there. It was on display, and there was this. It was a Baelor's whip sword were there, something like that. And we just about got us killed, but the barbarian went to go get that sword, the Vorpal sword. And the GM's like, all right, I mean, you guys survived getting it. Okay. We get to the final boss. Not the final boss. The wizard who had sold out for everything. We get up there. Guess what? Barbarian won initiative. Guess what? 2020. Dead wizard.
I remember.
And it's just kind of stop and we're like, huh. And he's like, well, what's up that stairwell there? And the devil that had orchestrated everything was up there. You know what? Great. Perfect. Fine. Let's do that. But it just happens. Roll with it.
Yeah, because like I hate that when like something happens and their big bad dies. It's just like just kill him. Like you can have another big bad. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to. But my favorite story I heard someone tell once was they were doing something and like a dragon showed up and
Mm-hmm.
it chased I think like the wizard into a cave and got stuck in the cave and then they just ran up behind it and like and they're like level 2 characters at this point. So they just
Oh,
poked this dragon in the butt until it died at like level 2. But those are the fun like that's all the fun.
yeah. You're playing a game. This is supposed to be fun. For God's sake, relax.
I
Take it
remember
easy.
I remember we were playing once and like one of the players had made like this absurd like grapple guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like just absurd. And it was this big like bad guy we were fighting and he literally grappled him to the ground and the rest of us just kind of ran up and just started stabbing him until he died. Like grappled.
And you know what? The grapple guy wasn't the one that killed anything,
Yeah,
but
he
he
just
enabled the rest of the group.
no, it was like that was his chief thing. I think he was a monk maybe, but like I think we figured out he could successfully grapple a dragon to the ground at some point because of all the
Daggone.
feats and stuff he had taken. But he pretty much just did that. We just like yeah, we just basically beat the like. But that's the fun. That's the stuff you remember. Like you don't remember the big bad speech like 10 years later. You remember like the time like one of you do
So
something stupid and you're all making fun of them or like something absurd like that.
one of the coolest moments I've had doing tabletop. We were in it was, and I was playing that half-orc cleric I mentioned earlier. We were in one of the domains of dread. He is trying to cast ceremony to find a way to do repentance for a paladin, and the dark powers don't like that. But he's a cleric of Ilmater, so that means that he's willing to take he's willing to be harmed to help somebody else, willing to do that. And he kept getting hurt, but he wouldn't stop doing the ritual. And the druid's just standing there pumping magic and pumping healing into him. It was like, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. Until for just a brief moment, it worked. It wasn't a combat encounter, but it was awesome and I loved it.
I know once it actually turned out to be really hilarious, but they got attacked in their sleep by these giant bats that had like that if they bit you, there was a chance they could paralyze you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the players rolled a 1 on his fort save, so he was paralyzed, and he was
Yeah.
paralyzed for the whole session. And they had stuff to do, so they had to figure out how to navigate him the whole game. And I mean, to his credit, he had a lot of fun with it and ran with it. He just bitched the whole time about how they were handling him, but like, but it was hilarious, and everyone was just laughing at him.
Uh, one of uh, the best ways I've heard it put is yes, you can create the meanest, nastiest, baddest dude on the who is sword stab soul killer. Can he order a drink at a bar? Is he capable of just basic human interaction? Or is he so dark and broody he has a 6 charisma and can't carry on a conversation with anybody? Don't matter how good he is with a sword if he can't operate around other sentient, right? So, people get so bound up in the character build. Like, if I lose a character, am I a little disappointed? Sure. But it's all right. You got an opportunity to do something new.
If your
Don't let that
character's
drag you down.
if your character's dumb, lean into it. Because there was one campaign where the guy was like really dumb, and the wizard would just be like, if there was like a room of traps, it'd be like, look, there's shinies over there, go get it, and he would just run through this room of traps, like, because he was like a really like brutish like tank of a character, but like it was
Hmm.
funny. It like he like the way he would talk and stuff. Like it was just
So I only got to play it for a couple of sessions, but I was playing in a game where the concept behind the guy, he didn't know. All right, the guy's name was Gomer. He had been a member of City Watch, and somehow along the line, everyone thought he was dead. And one day he just walks back into town, and he's big and he's strong and he's dumb, and he's got a 10 charisma, but he thinks that he can talk to people, so he just does, right? And so the whole thing behind it was that he would stick his foot in his mouth constantly, but he was so happy and good natured it didn't matter. It's like, you moron, what did you do? Well, God, you moron, you're in jail now. What are you gonna do? Well, they ain't going nowhere now, are they? Golly, we got them right where we want them.
that's funny.
So, yeah, what was I doing? Yeah, he was dumb. He thought he was more charismatic than he was, but it worked.
Well, he still had some charisma.
He is completely average at it,
Yeah, which is I mean I
and he did not have points in it either.
because there's nothing worse than someone with like an 8 charisma that like tries to like do something slick. Because someone did that once, and they gave some speech, and I'm like, okay, well, you gave your speech and it went over pretty well, but your fly was down the whole time, so it
Yeah,
didn't work.
everybody's smiling the whole time you're doing that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
what
got you.
so what have you thought? Are you hopeful for Superman this year?
And this is just from the trailer, but at least from the trailer, it kind of seems like that they're any attempt at doing Superman that's not dark and brooding is off on the right foot as far as
Yeah.
I'm that's not who the guy is. That's not what it's supposed to be. And okay, I like Henry Cavill, and
He
the
deserved
scenes where
better. He deserved better as a Superman.
like this in the scenes where Henry Cavill's talking to Amy Adams, right? Like the scene where he's sitting at the table with the handcuffs on, and she's like, "Why do you have those handcuffs on?" He goes, "It makes him feel better." Like that whole thing, great. But here's the thing: the rest of the movie around those interactions and stuff is so brooding and in a dark blue hue. It's like this is not Superman, right?
Yeah.
This is
They're doing the authority guy without irony when that was supposed to
yeah,
be Edgelord Superman.
yeah. And so if we've got bright colors back, which is nice. Like I liked Brandon Routh as Superman because it seemed to me that Brandon Routh had the attitude right.
Oh, that movie was so bad.
The movie was bad, but I liked Brandon Routh. It felt like he had the attitude right. It felt like he had the demeanor right. Why were all the colors on his suit muted? Why was the symbol smaller? Why are you doing all of that? Oh, we just thought it'd be better. No, but this one, the trailer for the new one, seems to be closer the right direction. And the fact that they have members of the Justice Society in it that look dead on members of the Justice Society and seem to be doing that sort of stuff, that gives me more hope than anything else.
The
Because it's like,
the biggest pause I have is the test screenings supposedly did not go over well.
but who did they test screen it for?
I don't know.
Is my question.
The thing is though, you can do like a harder edged Superman though, without doing all the broody stuff. Like if you go back to like the cartoons from the 40s, like that Superman has a harder edge to him.
Yeah, the Fleischer Superman.
Yeah. That's like more to what he used to be. Like you could do that. I mean, but he still stands for all like the hope, justice, and the American way stuff. But he did have a little more of an edge to him. And I like the
He's
John Byrne Superman. Like the Clark Kent that John Byrne did in like Post Crisis, like wasn't a pushover. He was like an accomplished author. He played football. Like he was like it wasn't so much that Lois in post crisis, like Lois didn't see, well, she teased him about being a hayseed, but Lois was more threatened by his accomplishments in post crisis than anything else.
So one of the things I always really enjoyed about that being a thing, Clark being a good author, his powers did not help him at all. His powers don't make him a good writer. His powers don't make him a better wordsmith. He's put in the work to do that, and I really liked that.
Well, there is some question, and some people bring it up at times. He could be smarter than the average person, but with his by being a Kryptonian, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think it matters either way because um, that was one of the things Jon Stewart criticized him for in the Justice League cartoon was that he wasn't a thinker. He just tried to like brute force everything when he didn't need to.
so yeah, there you go. Justice League cartoon. Superman could have a harder edge there without being an edge lord. Here's another one. I feel like a lot of people forget about. Lois and Clark was a pretty good Superman and Lois story, but it didn't get dark and broody. And the way that if you want to have a threat to Superman, you don't have it be a physical threat, because Superman does not push himself in the day-to-day threats he faces. He's not pushing his. So when he does push his limit, they're a lot further than anybody thought they were. If you want it to be a thing that is a problem for Superman, you have to make it personal conflict.
You
have
can use
to make
magic.
it something. You can use, okay, you can, but you need to make it a. I have a copy of
That's how
Action Comics 500 upstairs. What is the threat in that whole thing? Is that Metropolis wants to have a Superman Appreciation Day, and he's so uncomfortable with it, he doesn't want to do it. It's not a physical threat. It's that it is something that strikes at him on a personal level.
there are ways you can do physical. Well, I mean, like Lex Luthor, I think works so well because Lex Luthor is like a problem that can't be solved through physical force. Taking him to other worlds where maybe he has a red sun and things like that. You can't do that all the time though because that gets old real quick. I think like Mongol is like a good counterbalance. Like Darkseid's a good counterbalance. Trying to think of who else I've really enjoyed. Brainiac's a good counterbalance.
Whenever they put Superman and Captain Marvel at loggerheads, you know what? Works.
Well, Captain Marvel should kick his ass in any instance because Captain Marvel's magic.
Well, so the thing that it used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but they
It's
had
on Max, I think.
Superman Shazam First Thunder. And it was right after Billy got the powers, and he got the powers then because the ticking clock was that's when Black Adam. And what do they do? Black Adam gets back, and then Black Adam's going after Billy because he wants all of the power, not the shared power. And then Superman shows up to help. Well, Superman's getting the crap beat out of him while Billy's trying to figure stuff out. Except Superman's also able to do things, you know, the Captain and Black Adam don't have super breath that they can use to freeze things or heat vision or something like that. So it's a credible threat, but there's also a very good reason why Superman behaves the way he does, and it worked.
I actually think Golden Age Captain Marvel's a lot more interesting than Superman because there's a lot of aspects. There's a lot of aspects of Captain Marvel that have been lost over the years. Like the fact is, so if you like the rest of the Marvel family don't have their own powers. Like he actually dulls his powers to share them with Mary and Freddy.
And every time it does that, it's a split between whoever's called on, which means that Captain Marvel could be at 1/3 power on a given day.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a big deal.
But I think generally when you go back, his comics in the Golden Age were a little more better written, I think he had a little more personality. Well, there's a reason he was outselling Superman. Um,
Yeah.
and that
I
whole
had a
lawsuit was bullshit, by the way. Like DC had no standing. I don't know why they won that lawsuit because he was not a
they
copy of
won
Superman.
they won that because Fawcett City was already on the rocks and facing bankruptcy, and they couldn't afford to do the legal battle. DC hit them at their weak.
It's still like he's not. He was never a Superman clone. Like you just have to even read the comics; they're not the same from that era.
No, it it's history now. So what are you gonna do?
He's pretty decent from Golden Age comic wise though, because sometimes you read that stuff. Like the Alan Scott Green Lantern's pretty decent, but some of that stuff's real rough. Like early Batman, the first couple years of Batman is not good.
Yeah,
Early Superman is not great either, because the thing with Golden Age is the guys writing Golden Age comics were like third rate writers. They weren't good enough to write pulp, and they weren't like good enough to do like comic strips. So that's how
hmm
they ended up in comics. So that's how you ended up with those books, and it's like a lot of it's not written great. Like I mean, just like even structurally for like a sentence is not written great.
it happens.
And Batman just straight up murders people in like the first couple issues.
Yeah,
And I also love when people bitch about Robin. It's like, no, Robin was there within like 8 issues, so like you have no standing. And
Robin was the first young sidekick, and then suddenly everybody dead.
well, it's because it like doubled Detective Comics sales with having
Yeah.
him in it.
Well, you get the young readers get a self insert that way, and so it's like, well, you're not going to be Batman, but you could imagine yourself as Robin rolling.
It's funny how that worked though, and like all the little sidekicks in the cartoons in the '80s didn't work as well.
No, no, they didn't. Um, God, Marvin and Woody.
Ugh.
Ugh,
I was
please.
thinking about the kid in Mask and that stupid robot.
Oof.
Oh, I guess
Yeah,
Defenders of the Earth wasn't bad. They did the sidekick thing right though, but they were more like teenagers and they weren't annoying.
I think they also listened to direction. So whenever their mentor is like, you need to get out of here, they
Yeah.
so yeah. Um, I think they had one of those. I think
I need to get back to reading. Well, I've been I'm reading Spawn this year because I can get that through Libby for free. I've been reading through
mm,
that, but I've been wanting to hit some other comics, old stuff.
there's so a lot of the indie stuff that was the late '90s, early aughts thing. It is so very much of its time that it turned me off. Like, there was a character, the concept interests me a lot. A character called Magdalene. The idea that this is a warrior nun that goes out after uh, that goes out after monsters, right? Okay, cool. I like this. This is a cool idea. I'm down for it. What do they do in the very first issue? The end of the very first issue has the Pope write a letter to a newly elevated cardinal and says, by the way, the whole church is a sham built on. I'm like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? Edgy. It's like, no, it's stupid. You're undercutting your own premise in your first issue. So basically, what you're saying is that all of this stuff that Magdalena does, you don't know why it works.
Oh,
And
that's really dumb.
I hated it. I was down to get into it. I was like, I like this concept. Let's go with it. And they put that at the end of the first issue. Everything the church is built on is a lie. And I'm like, why did you do you there was no good reason to do that. There
I've
was no good reason.
I've surprisingly enjoyed Spawn so far, and it's not been like as edgy as I thought it was gonna be. Cause like,
Doesn't cut your fingers while you read it.
cause like, yeah, because like the heaven and hell concept is really interesting because like it's not necessarily like you would think of it biblically, but it also works because like they're doing their own thing like apart from humanity, like to the point where I don't even like you don't even kind of know what their motivations are, which I kind of like because it's like, well, yeah, like supernatural like demons would have that, and a lot of it is like a lot of it is he's upset because his wife like remarried and stuff because he made this deal and they sent him back like 10 years later because it's and it has like its edgy moments, but like it's like mobster stuff, and it's like we're an image, we can show blood and blah blah blah, but it's been less edgy than.
Well, that, and I think the other thing is that. Wait, did the Crow predate Spawn?
They would have been around the same time, I think.
Right, right, right. But I'm thinking, did one predate the other?
Probably the Crow.
I'm still, in hindsight, like, it's a crying shame what happened. Because Brandon Lee just showed so much promise. But they also didn't take that hero concept and make it.
I had seen that before, and I was actually shocked that the Crow was not as edgelordy as I was expecting it to be or had forgotten it was, and I was like, oh no, this is pretty. This is It's a shame that they've never gotten it like right with anything subsequent from that. Like they always screw it up. But I really love that movie. That was a fun time when we reviewed that.
That was a good watch. Yeah.
But I think we're gonna call this a day. Don't know what we're gonna be doing next week. We might hit some USWA. It's really gonna depend on scheduling and stuff. But we will be hitting the USWA back up again. What was the topic we wanted to hit? The
one that I was deferring at the beginning?
Yeah, what one was that? Was that the GCW stuff?
That's not the one I had in mind.
Oh, okay.
Britt Baker being in trouble is the one I had in mind. But we'll see if anything else comes out of it. Yeah, shocked, right?
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. Let me do this properly. But we'll see if there's still any juice.
Shocked Pikachu face.
We'll see if there's any juice left in it when we get there.
I'm sure it'll have like some. There'll be all this drama and then nothing will come of it.
Well, that would make sense because if nothing comes out of her, then that means that there's truth to it. We don't see her on TV.
Yeah. I think the problem is though, I don't know. I mean, she has her problems, but I think she needs to work on her wrestling game a lot because I think that long layover, and I don't know. I imagine with her injuries, like it just hurts now.
We'll get to it.
Because like Bailey has never like quite recovered from her tear.
That's true, but my perception is it's much more of an attitude thing, and I have a very specific instance for it. But like I said, we'll save that for.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us as always. We'll be back next week. This week, I guess we've just been in 2 corners, so you guys can fight over the other 2 corners. Thank you for joining us as always and hanging out with us. We appreciate you guys stopping by and chilling out with us. So this has been the 4 Corners podcast, and we will catch